Alright, so one of the things that we like to do as bushcrafters is take little tiny metal breath mint tins and turn them into fire kits. So what I've done here is I went to Cracker Barrel and bought one of these. They're about a couple of bucks. What I use these for is to make char cloth exclusively. And here's what I make it into. Alright, so what I do is I dome the top. If you can look at that, and that adds a little bit of storage space. If you compare the two, if you wanted to hide a flint and steel kit inside there, you got a little extra room to do that in. So I go a step further and I go one size up. These I get from Walmart. I get a Matt Paul flint striker, put that in the bottom, and I keep a little chunk or two of flint in there, or some chert. Nice sharp chert, keep some sharp edges on it. Then I go one step further and I get one of the ones that have a deck of cards in it. Now you can find these at flea markets, dollar stores. To make that extra room, what we need to do is take the lid off and dome it. Alright, so I basically take my vise, a piece of leather, and a ball peen hammer, and I get to work. I actually take the hinge and I overextend it just a hair, and I bring it to the point where I can just take the hinge off, take the lid off, and what you have is left behind right there. So what we're doing is we're working with this piece right now. All we need is a piece of leather, ball peen hammer, plastic hammer with a rubber end. So all we're really concerned with is the lid. And what I do is I start from the center and I work my way outwards in a spiral fashion. When I get to the outer side, I want to tilt it a little bit. What I'm trying to do is keep the area that I'm pounding on nice and flat in relation to the leather. Alright, so now what I've done is I had inadvertently tapped the side here and made it out of square. So I want to maintain that rectangle and pound it back as soon as I see it. Okay, so what we have so far is not bad. It's a good start, but it's not quite where we want it compared to the one that we've already done. Now this one's nice and dark and gray because I've had it in the fire a couple times already. And when you throw it in the fire, it anneals the metal. So you can only go so far on this before you can run the risk of it cracking. Especially if you have a hole drilled in the center like I do in this large one. You're going to start to see it flake and bend back and forth a little bit. So when you start seeing that happen, it's time to throw it in the fire and anneal that whole thing all over again. Because when you're tapping on this, you're actually work hardening the metal. So this hammer is basically just to take out the unevenness of our last hammer. This is nice and flat, and it takes out some of the tool marks, if you want to call them that, from the ball peen hammer. Alright, so there you can tell we took out some of those tool marks left over from the ball peen hammer. It's not really as important on this one as it is on something larger like this. You really don't want a large amount of bumps in here. It doesn't give it a good appearance. Alright, so after we get it domed to the point where we're happy with it and we like the additional storage space inside, we can actually put it together right now and throw it in the fire and anneal the whole thing. We can actually dome it a little more, but for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to stop right here and show you that next process. So to put it together, we line it up with the holes that are already made by the factory. Alright, and we get the hinges all the way down in there. We want to take a few seconds to actually form the lid to make sure that when it snaps down, it locks nice and tight. And the same thing goes for our Altoids tin, which is our medium size. We have to separate as carefully as we can the top and bottom, put a dome on this, and then when we're done, we can anneal it together as a unit. What I want to do is intentionally work this too much and show you that when you need to anneal it, you're going to start seeing stuff like this. This little point right here is it's actually a projection. It's an upward projection of the rest of the plane. And what it's doing is it's telling me that this metal has reached a point where it's becoming brittle and I need to throw it in a fire and anneal it. But remember, when we anneal something, we want to do it as a unit so it doesn't lose its shape. So what I'll do is I'll put the lid back on, push these tabs in, and throw it in the campfire. But first, we make firewood. So the first time we're going to burn these, we're going to let them sit in there for about 10 minutes directly on the fire. This is to get rid of all the zinc on here. Now, zinc is poisonous, so make sure that the vapors are going up the flue or you're outdoors. We have already annealed our lid and our base, so what we want to do is dome this out a little more. Alright, critical flaw. If you look, part of the stamping and the design of this Cracker Barrel mince tin was you got a little crack right here, if you can see that. Not a big deal. You want your gases to come out anyway. You want a little bit of venting when you're doing char cloth. So that's really not a critical item, but I would stop here, seeing that that crack could actually grow. Alright. These two are done. I'll probably give these away. Not sure to who yet. So you're probably thinking, why all the nesting tins? I mean, why put one inside the other? Well, if I have this one for my char cloth exclusively, I can go out and get materials. I can store my tinder in here. So I don't have to dump this out to store tinder. You know what I'm saying?